while you are engaging in that, let's see if there are any questions that our speakers can pick up. I see Vali's hand. Are you able, Vali, you can go ahead with your question while Dion looks for additional hands.
Thanks, Chair. I just wanted to pose this question maybe directly to Cynthia from ESCOM. Excellent presentation. I want to endorse the comments made by you, Chair. We are in the midst of a crisis at the moment for the next 2 to 3 years. And that crisis will be part of that journey, of the 10-year journey of the future Munich utility. My question to Cynthia is, given this 2 to 3 year crisis situation, what is their thinking, or maybe what is ESCOM's thinking in the trade-offs that has to be made in their journey, in the ESCOM journey, the just energy transition journey? In other words, what are the essential trade-offs that needs to be made so that we address the crisis at hand? Thanks, Chair.
Thank you so much for the question, Vali. You actually posed a very good question. From our side as ESCOM, really, I think what we are saying is, I mean, we've been informed by our shareholder, the government, that we need to legally separate and we need to be a financially sustainable business going forward. So what we are doing is we are focusing more on renewable technologies going forward. That's why we are aiming to deploy PVs for our customers. We are aiming to deploy microgrids for our customers, etc. And we feel like really at this point, although there will be trade-offs required here and there, but the rate at which we are going and the direction that we are taking is a win-win for ourselves as a business, because if we successfully deploy these renewable technologies, it's going to improve on our profitability as a business, but then the customers are going to benefit as well, because they will be having access to electricity. So going forward, we feel like it's an exciting time for us as ESCOM, because we are reinventing ourselves to play in the renewable space. And if we get everything right, we should be able to transition then with all the other entities that are, you know, industry players into a just energy transition for our country. I hope that answers your question, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia and Vali. It's a complex issue indeed. I'm going to take one more question if there are hands up, Dion.
There is from Mashweni. Mashweni, you can go ahead.
Thank you. My question is more in between the financing and also the commission. And I see there are lots of some comments that are coming through in terms of industrialization. But I'm thinking maybe the presentation was meant for the municipalities. Maybe that's why that did not come from the presentation point of view. So the question is to Stephen to say, like, with your slide on the planning on economic activities, I did not see you bringing the IPEP issue and also the involvement of DTI. And then what is the thinking around the 8.5 billion? Are we intending to take some of the money and make sure that we develop the manufacturing for the solar panels and the batteries, so that at the end of the day, we make sure that the 8.5 billion, it stays in South Africa, it doesn't go outside? Because if we're still gonna order the panels from China and Germany, then the money is not gonna benefit us. And at the same time, we need to decommission or close the mines. So I think if we take into account the industrialization in terms of a bigger scale, not only the community, but trying as a country to have some manufacturing factories in terms of solar panels and batteries, because they're going to be in demand. And then if we manufacture them here, we can even have the market for Africa. So my question is around that. And I would love to take the discussion with you guys outside the context of this meeting so that I can understand. And also I understand maybe the presentation was high level because of the audience. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve, are you able to answer? Matrini is from the DMRE.
Yeah, thanks, Mashwini. That's a really great question. And yeah, a point well made. I try to sort of hint at it, that part of this transition conversation is about economic diversification. So we can't just focus on power generation and utilities, but we have to focus on how we add value in that process to local communities. And so part of that is about creating other industry built off that green energy. And part of it, as you point out, is the opportunity for localization. And to kind of get back to my point that I closed with in my presentation, is that's going to require quite a significant amount of collaboration. And so you mentioned the DTIC, they're a critical partner because they're going to be the ones that are going to help incentivize local industry in different places. And I think different municipalities will have different contexts, different strengths, different skills bases, different sort of locations in comparison to markets. And so this really does have to be a bottom-up planning process. And separately, the PCC are working on sort of thinking how that might work and how we would account for procedural justice, include communities in those kind of decision-making processes. But you're right, I mean, that's an entire session on its own, looking at what those opportunities are. On the localization, I think there's a significant opportunity there. I think the National Business Initiative estimated that localization opportunities in renewable energy could create another 700,000 jobs, which is quite a big chunk of jobs. But again, it's something that we would have to develop over time. I can't really comment on the 8.5 billion and how that would be spent. I mean, Chantal's better placed to answer that particular question. But I would also say that the 8.5 billion is really just the beginning. I think it's an opportunity for us to get to grips with how these international finance systems work. We're going to need more support than that as we roll out these opportunities across a whole range of municipalities as we focus on creating jobs and localization opportunities. Also would welcome a conversation outside. This is a key area of focus for us at the PCC. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stephen and Matrini. Atta, see your hand up. If it's short, I will allow you to ask your question, and then we have to go on to the next set of presentations.
Thank you. I'll try and be short, 2 quick ones, and if there's no time, perhaps those that is going to respond can just post it in the boxes. My first one is to Cynthia. I would like to understand, she say, the future view of Eskom business distribution, specifically in 3 areas around the system operator and trader. My question is, how will this in the distribution business differ from the central purchase agency that's been envisaged by DPE's roadmap and the rollout? But perhaps it's a longer story. Cynthia, you can just pop the answer there in the chat box. My second one, perhaps Steve, it's to you or to Chantal, and that goes in terms of the money that we will require for the jet transition. Steve, you did speak about the 8.5 billion, but do we have somewhere a financial plan or a financial model or a kind of a budget that aggregates between our bigger contributor in the energy business and the rest, so that one can understand how you're going to roll out this into the future, because money will make it happen or not. But perhaps again, a longish answer, you can just perhaps respond in the chat box. That should be okay. Thanks, Leila.
Thanks, At. I'm going to ask Chantal to try and answer both of those questions around the 8.5 billion and the financing of JET. Thank you.
Thank you, Leila, and thanks for the questions as well. So perhaps to Mashweni's one earlier about localization and precise allocations, the work of the task team is not yet at that level of precise allocations by those particular line items. I'm not sure if in all honesty, whether we will get to that certainly this year. But what is recognized is that in the design of the interventions that have to contribute to, and I don't know if I made this point clearly or if even at all, but the JET partnership is premised fundamentally on the updated and nationally determined contributions, which sets the path for emission trajectory. And we're trying to obviously get to the most emissions range, which is the lower end of that range. And it links a little bit to the prior question on the financial modeling. So there is a lot of work, which I know Steve is involved with as well, on the energy modeling and so the challenge is more at this stage, what sequence and combination of investments are needed in the next 3 to 5 years to put us onto a path of being able to achieve that emissions reduction, understanding the qualitative dimensions and understanding that this is about economic diversification. So localization has to feature in that. So the best I can say at the minute is we know that the 8.5 billion is wholly insufficient. There is a lot of work that's being mapped to take this to 2030. We have some aggregate numbers coming from Eskom and other places of what will be needed for grid, what might be needed for transition. And I think Eskom's planning has gone all the way up to 2030 and 2035 in some instances, even beyond for GX, DX, and TX, and then the broader, more independent energy dimension. So there are numbers floating around, not necessarily approved numbers, not necessarily all, bought into numbers, but there's definitely order of magnitude that is available, and underpinned by the fact that all of the design, all of the interventions have to have certain design features. So the investment plan is at the very least trying to set a direction of travel as far as, what would a JET portfolio look like, and any intervention, whether it's public or private, needs to contribute to regional economic diversification. It needs to not create dependencies on the state. It needs to, have local ownership structures and have support domestically, nationally as well. So those are we're more at qualitative stage, to be honest, rather than precision stage. I hope that gives some comfort, but there's definitely room to please weigh in on what precision and how we can sharpen our pencil on that precision stage also. Thanks, Leila.
Thanks again, Chantal.